Good afternoon, everybody. In the absence of our mayor, I will chair the meeting today. My name's Alicia Milne. I'm the Legislative and Planning Coordinator with the Township of Southgate. So it is 1:01. I'll call the meeting to order. This is a public meeting concerning proposed zoning bylaw amendments pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act. The files that will be heard today are C724 for E&S Martin, C824 for Enoch Bowman, C1024 for Edwin and Ellen Beringer, C1124 for Douglas, Allen, Vicky, and Dennis Haw, and C1224 for Melmar Industries, Inc. Any person or public body is entitled to attend the public meeting and make written or oral submissions in support of or in opposition to any of the proposed zoning bylaw amendments. Written comments, should be submitted to the clerk, Lindsay Green. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Southgate before the zoning bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council of the Township of Southgate to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and in addition, they may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal. In the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So the first zoning bylaw amendment is file C7-24 for E&S Martin. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to permit an on-farm diversified use, being a small-scale dry manufacturing shop to support an existing family farm. There is an existing 37 square meter power room on the property. 500 square meters of the outside storage is also proposed. The dry manufacturing shop and office will have 730 square meters floor area. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would be to rezone a portion of the lands from agricultural A1 to a new agricultural exception zone, permitting a small-scale dry manufacturing shop to support an existing family farm. The location of the subject land is concession 4, SWTSR lots 218 and 219, geographic township of Proton, township of Southgate, civic address is 712457, Southgate Side Road 71. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, through you, Alicia. Proper notice was given in accordance with the act. The sign was posted on the property and notice was sent to neighboring property owners.
Perfect. Thanks, Lindsay. I will now ask for our planning consultant, Bill White, to review correspondence received from the commenting agencies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were comments from, with no comments from Bell Canada and Enbridge Gas. The Public Works Department had no concerns. They advise safe access can be provided to the road and that it is a load restricted road. County of Grey reviewed the provisions for on-farm diversified uses in their the county official plan. And they indicated that there were no concerns relative to the hazard lands or streams considerations on the site, and had no concerns with regard to the application. The Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority provided comments and had no objections. They looked at it from a natural heritage perspective, and they believe that the application is consistent with 3.1 of the provincial policy statement and with the county and township official plans.
Thank you. Would you please review any written comments received by members of the public?
So I'm not aware of any on that particular application, unless I'm missing some.
There was one received.
I did submit one on this one yesterday.
Okay, so I think I was emailed that and I can review it.
Sorry, yeah, there was an email sent through for comments on C8 as well as C7, if you have access to that, Bill.
Okay. C8 and C7. This is C7.
This is C7.
Okay. Quickly find that. Okay. All right. So a letter from Karen A. Sabulski, if I said that correctly, and
Close enough.
Andres Bite of 220074 Southgate Road 22. They registering their opposition to the proposed zoning amendment. The reasons include Mr. Bauman has approval for a similar facility on a neighboring property. There will now be 2 facilities within a short distance. Mr. Martin, another property owner, farm owner, also has another facility, 2 of his facilities within close proximity to each other. The proposed power source of the factory building is dirty energy from diesel generators rather than from the electric grid. Have environmental studies been performed? The increase in large truck traffic is a concern. Degradation of the high road condition due to heavy truck traffic. Neighbors to the south and east would be exposed to additional noise from truck traffic. Southgate Council has made investment in the development of an industrial park and promote small factories, but the farmlands factories are not going to that location. And then within an 8 square mile area of their farm, there are now 35 to 40 factories totaling about 320,000 square feet of space. And they have attached a map showing 37 such properties with on-farm diversified uses. That's a summary of the written comments received on C7.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Are there any questions or discussion from council members at this time? Seeing none. Oh, Martin.
Thanks, Alicia. In the report, Bill, it said there was already a generating room there. Is there already an on-farm shop? Something we don't know of?
Not that I'm aware of, through the chair to the councillor. Sometimes they have them for agricultural purposes on the property. That there are also the generators are used for that. So I'm not aware of a use that's not permitted on the site.
Okay, now another follow-up then. Andy, Mr. Bite, is this on directly across your property?
It's one property over diagonally across is
Okay.
the Martin one.
Yeah, and you live on a fairly short dirt road, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Because there's so much of a cluster, is there some way we could look at having that road paved, or at least some of it extended off the driveways to keep down the dust? Because of the
Yeah,
That's just
that's a
something that
major, that's a major issue with us,
yeah.
and then
So-
Mr. Bauman's on C8, across from Mike Redmond, that's where I think most of the traffic's going to be, and most of the traffic on 22. So it's going to be a major issue. Or it's already bad, Martin,
Oh, yeah.
with trucks going by, with the dust. We have to, get our windows washed all the time, that there isn't a day where, it's everything's dusty here,
Well, I don't know if it's possible, Bill, but is that something that could be looked into? A short strips, big clusters, instead of just an apron, actually extended it out for a little bit on the road? Because I was quite amazed to see that letter with all the shops that are, like, we've talked about clusters before, but that's just something to look into, maybe. I know this is just public information now, but
Right.
anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Through the chair to the councilor member, we'll address the issues that are raised in the letters in our report. We'll also speak to Public Works about road improvements and whether they're needed. I'm not sure that you could put it on one as a developer or farmer or one person as opposed to another, but we can certainly look at that. If this is approved, it would normally be subject to site plan approval, and that authority has been delegated to staff, but the condition of the road and the entrance would be part of what
Yeah.
what can be dictated under the site plan agreement. So we'll look at it and report back to council in our staff report.
Joan, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Alicia. Through the chair. Bill, could you repeat for me how many of these farms or unfarmed diversity properties you said that there was? 37?
That, if I may, that's correct. The people who wrote in mapped them, and there are, according to their calculations, and they've named them 37 sites.
Yeah, I drove around, looked at the buildings. There's, in 2016 is when a whole bunch of these started going in. And at that point in time, there was only 12 or 13 in this same area. Now there's 37, including the 2 that are proposed. I'm not sure I even got them all, but, it's going to be between 35 and 40, if not more. And that's my question to council. How much industry is enough? We've already got the intensification.
Go ahead, Joan, you had another question?
I have a follow-up.
Sorry.
Do we have a specified amount? Is there like, should it be 10 or 20 for such area, or is there a cutoff or?
Right. If I may, through the chair, there is no cutoff. The criteria are specified in the township official plan, in the county official plan, and it's basically limited to sites that, depending on the size, you end up with 750 square meters maximum floor area in the use, including the power room and so forth. But most of the properties would qualify, because as long as farming is the main use of the site. So these are supposed to be subordinate and accessory to the main use, which is agriculture. And on-farm diversified uses are, let's put it this way, strongly encouraged in provincial guidelines for farmlands as ways to, augment farm income and make sure the farm is viable long term. But there's no doubt that it's become a very popular alternative in Southgate and places all around southwestern Ontario, and particularly with the Mennonite community. And the idea is that they're buffered and screened, and the size is limited so that they don't have impacts. But no doubt when it goes from 16 to 37 in less than 10 years, then you're going to experience some impacts. But there's nothing preventing them from applying. They do need a rezoning each time, and council deals with them on a case-by-case basis. But we haven't really looked at it from a comprehensive review about how much of an impact are these really having on the rural nature of our community. So that it may be something that needs to come out of this, but there's no limit right now to which ones can come forward and ask for rezoning. It just basically depends on your designation, and then there's certain limitations on the size, and the main use has to remain agriculture. We've had that debate in the past where some of them are on very low, well, when I say quality, on farmlands that have some wetlands and so forth. So is farming really the main use? We've had that discussion before, but generally speaking, they go in, and most of the time there's very little impact from them. But I can see how cumulatively they can result in, increased truck traffic and so forth. We try and put screening and buffering on them to help integrate with the rural character of the neighborhood. And it's been generally okay, but here we are, someone's experiencing impacts, and they're bringing forward to you. And, I think it's fair for them to bring that forward.
Thank you, Bill. Maybe that's something we might want to look into. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of council at this time? Seeing none, I'll ask if the applicant. Yep.
Just a comment, I'm sorry, it just popped in my head. This is so close to Dundalk and increased truck traffic. there's a whole kettle of fish that could be opened up there too, with make sure the trucks don't go through Dundalk. So this is more than what Bill said about, you know, the cumulative effect. There's going to be a lot of effects, especially if there's 32 around the Bites property in that area around Dundalk. We're getting trucks and trucks and trucks. So that's just another comment. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'll ask if the applicant or agent is present. Please identify yourself by stating your name for the record. Would you like to make any representation on the application? Seeing and hearing none. I will move on. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of this application? And is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition to the application? Okay, please state your name, full name and address for the record, and your comments will be included for the minutes as part of the record of the meeting.
Thank you. Andy Bite and Karen Sobolski, we submitted the letter. We believe that this needs to be looked at to determine how much industry is enough. I did hear, you know, the planner talk about clusters, and maybe that's part of the solution, where there are dedicated roads that are built to handle truck traffic, that people are tolerant of the noise, and that it has less impact on the rest of the community. You know, instead of being an agricultural community, we're now becoming an industrial community, and that's, you know, this was my grandfather's farm. He bought it in 1950. We bought it after he died in 1998, and we've retired here, you know, for a you know, rural way of life with some peace and quiet, and healthy air, and now, you know, the world has changed with these, where there's truck traffic, where there's dust. It's very interesting. When I looked at Wallenstein Manufacturing and their VP, you know, was quoted in this magazine, you know, how their business model worked. And he likened it to an octopus, where, you know, there was growth with all these little small places, you know, within an hour to 90 minutes of Wallenstein. And that's what he's talking about is Southgate. And this octopus just keeps putting its tentacles out. And the rest of us who, you know, are here, you know, to enjoy rural life, to farm, to raise cattle, all of that are negatively impacted. And the rest of the townspeople too, because who is going to pay for all these roads, right? Because these roads were never designed for these heavy trucks, and we're getting more and more of them. And the other problem with the small, you know, small farm, the small factory shop, is that they only have so much room for capacity, so that they can't store a whole bunch of stuff, or else they go over the guidelines. And so there's lots of truck traffic because they got to keep moving this stuff in and out. It's just in time. And so, you know, we've created this problem. And the other thing is, you know, we're moving to a more sustainable society and trying to reduce emissions. Well, there's all this traffic back and forth between here and Wallenstein, between shops, you know, burning diesel fuel in these trucks to move these goods around. And, you know, they're using diesel generators, which, you know, we all know are pollutants and are carcinogenic. So I think we have to look at this very closely and stop the octopus from doing, you know, reaching out with more and more tentacles. The other area that, you know, I'm surprised that, you know, when the town, you know, reviews each of these, that they don't go to the fire department and emergency responders and say, have a look at this development. By the way, there's welding gases on there, there's propane, there's diesel fuel, there's maybe some industrial processes. There's no water at these sites, you know, for suppression or fire suppression. And we've got a relatively small, you know, volunteer fire department that takes a bunch of time to assemble and get out to a fire. And are they capable of handling industrial fires? Yes, they can handle a house fire. Yes, they can handle a barn fire, you know, basically just burns, but But these industrial things with hazardous goods in them, are we equipped to deal with that? I have a feeling no. So I think, council needs to look at that and what they're going to do for, the future. And look at the cluster and that, and say, maybe it's time to, review this and put a stop to this for now. That's all I have to say on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in attendance who wants to make a submission in opposition to the application? Seeing none, are there any further questions or discussions from members of council? Seeing none, that completes that file. We'll move on to the next file, which is application C824 for Enoch Bowman. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to permit an on-farm diversified use, being a small-scale metal works and dry manufacturing shop to support a family farm residence, also to be constructed on the property. The shop and power room will have 750 square meters floor area. 750 square meters of outside storage is also proposed. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would be to rezone a portion of the lands from agricultural A1 to a new agricultural exception zone, permitting a small-scale metalworks and dry manufacturing shop to support a family farm also being constructed on site. Location of the subject lands is concession 3, SWTSR, part lots 218, 219, and 220, RP 16, R7, 303, part 2. Geographic Township of Proton, Township of Southgate, civic address, none currently assigned. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Through you, Chair Milne, yes, proper notice was given in accordance with the act. The sign was posted on the property and notice was sent out to abutting landowners.
Perfect, thank you. I'll now ask for our planning consultant, Bill White, to review correspondence received from commenting agencies.
You're muted, Bill.
Muted, Bill.
Thank you, Chair Milne. The Bell Canada and Enbridge Gas had no comments or concerns with the application. The comments for this application are very much along the lines of the previous one. The County of Grey has provided information on current policy in the county official plan for on-farm diversified uses. They've looked at the county planning ecology staff have looked at fish habitat and stream considerations and natural heritage features, and they have suggested that so long as there are positive comments from the Conservation Authority regarding the location of the hazard lands, county planning staff have no concerns. Conservation Authority looked at the application under their mandate under the Conservation Authorities Act, and they felt that the proposal is consistent with section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement regarding natural hazard policies and with the County of Grey and Township of Southgate official plan policies for natural hazards. There was also a letter received. I'm sorry, I'm going to get the names. Karen Cebulski and Andreas Beit, and they live on Southgate Road 22, and their reasons for opposition are again, the proposed power source of the shop is not clean energy because it comes from diesel generators. He talks about Enoch Bowman, who is owns farmland but not a farmer and has small scale dry manufacturing uses throughout Southgate, and reference to the growing business like an octopus. Talks about the resulting increase in truck traffic, which is unacceptable, and there is a dust problem on the only gravel section of Southgate Road 22 that he has raised with the Public Works. Again, in reference to the industrial park and how the small factories could fit well within those locations, and noting that there are between 35 to 40 factories totaling 320,000 square feet within an 8-mile square area of their farm. He talked about normal work hours being exceeded, and there are no noise rules that appear to be followed. He is noting risk management concerns about local fire departments and whether they can manage to fight a fire in these factories, and particularly due to the welding gases and fuel storage. And he's noting a similar approval for Mr. Enoch Bauman on a nearby property and how close they are together, and talks about how this is intensifying industrial use in the rural area, and the map, as with the other one, showing 37 locations that he found, is provided with the objection. I don't believe there are any other written comments received.
Thank you, Bill. Are there any questions or discussions from members of council at this time? Martin?
Yeah, Bill, you mentioned, or the letter mentioned that you read something about the farming aspect of it. And as you said prior, there's starting to get a debate on this. What actually, because the lots are getting smaller still with on-farm diversified uses, what's the criteria? Like, do you have to have your agricultural number? Because some of the smaller hobby farm sizes, they don't have to, but they're still applying for on-farm subdivision. So again, we've talked about this. What constitutes farm income and the industrial? Which is paying which? Because if the farming isn't making the money and the on-farm diversified use is, then that does not go against policy.
Right, if I may, through the chair to the councillor, that's a good question. The issue of whether it's a bona fide farmer is a concern in the agricultural designation. So what I would call prime ag areas, and in those criteria, it is a requirement that they have a farm identification number. And there you tend to get the larger properties. So we see them as small as 20 hectares, but often they're as big as 40 or more. But in the rural areas, it's not a requirement that they provide a farm identification number. So that's where we tend to get some of the smaller lots that we've been discussing lately, where some concern about, what's comes first, the farming or the on-farm diversified use, and which drives which. There's no measurement for it. It goes to intent. So in the policy, it says that the on-farm diversified use should be secondary to the main use, which is to be agriculture. So we don't go into checking income statements and so forth. If there was ever a problem and a complaint laid and we ended up at some kind of tribunal with a court, that could come into effect. But really, it goes to the intent of the applicants and what they state in their applications and how we see the land. And not so much with these ones, but with others where a lot of the land is not necessarily usable farmland. I know council has had some concerns about that in the past. But like I said before, the provincial government is strongly encouraging extra uses on the farm to allow for farmers, bona fide farmers, to make ends meet. So the question is, has this gone beyond that? And certainly, I can see the argument with the number of small factories that are out there. I should say too that they all, in addition to a site plan, they all do need to get building permits. So as far as the life safety things, those should be addressed through the building permit process. And obviously welding equipment and certain other equipment is subject to other standards, federal and such, that would control how that's used. But, the point's well made that there's 30 some factories like this out there. There is always potential for emergency services calls.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of council at this time? Seeing none, I'll ask if the applicant or agent is present. Please identify yourself by stating your name for the record. Would you like to make any representation on your application? Seeing and hearing none. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of this application? Seeing and hearing none. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition to the application?
I would like to make some further comments on this one.
Okay, if you could just please note your name again for the record, and your comments will be included in the minutes of the meeting.
Thank you. My name is Andy Bite, and my wife is Karen Cebulski. We reside at 220074 Southgate Road 22. When Mr. Bauman, back in 2016, wanted to put up one of these facilities at 220183 Southgate Road 22, which is just down the road from me, I did some research on him, and he owned that property. He had bought that property. He had bought another property on 71, and I believe he may own some other properties as well. So, is he a farmer? No. When I did that research in 2016, it turns out that him and his family owned Wallenstein Manufacturing, which at that time had sales of $350 million a year. Since then, I believe it was 2018 or 2019, the family, the patriarch was Enoch Bauman as well, but I think this is the son here, and they sold that business to different individuals. But these individuals have continued to use these resources here in Southgate and Mr. Bauman's resources here to fabricate various bits and pieces for all their machinery and move them around and assemble, be it manure spreaders, log splitters, be it all the different things that they make. So does a farmer who at one time had a $350 million a year company, is that really a farmer? I think he's an industrialist. I think this is part of their business plan. It's part of their business model where they can have these small scale facilities, relatively cheap labor. They can work what hours they want, and without a whole bunch of provincial interference. I think the planner, when he talked about the provincial policy, certainly that is a policy, and it's not a bad thing, because in various areas of the province, the farmers are suffering. But I don't think they ever dreamed that on this little dirt road they would have 3 or 4 factories. On the next road, another 3 or 4 factories. And on the next road, another 3 or 4 factories, and 30 or 40 factories within a relatively short area. And so while the policy is probably favorable, I'm not sure that the township has to interpret it word for word, because there is a limit to everything. There's a limit to transportation. There's a limit to emissions. There's a limit to safety. So I think, once again, I would ask the council review this, and just how much of this industry do we need in Southgate? And when do we stop this? Or how do we control it? That's my comments. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you, Mr. Bite. Is there anyone else present who would like to make a submission in opposition to the application? Seeing none, are there any questions or further discussion from members of council at this time? Councillor John?
Thank you, through the chair. Bill, this question is for you. I probably heard it before, but I just wanted to know, for the size of the farm is supposed to be bigger than the unfarmed diversity property, correct?
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, the farming is supposed to be the main use of the property. That's correct. And so there's restrictions on the floor area allowed for an on-farm diversified use to try and make sure that agriculture remains the primary use. But yeah, so that's the best way I can describe it.
Okay. So does it say, okay, you have to farm 50 acres and the on-farm diversity is supposed to be 10 acres somewhere in that line, something like that?
If I may, no, it's not that specific. It could be in policy, but it's not right now. It's basically a 2% of the land can be zoned for an on-farm diversified use. And within that, a certain percentage can only be building area. And so it pretty much on properties over 20 hectares, it pretty much comes out to 750 square meters, roughly 8,000 square feet of floor space. And that's supposed to include office and lunchrooms and shop area and power rooms and such. But that's basically, there's nothing that says there has to be 50 acres of farmland with that 750 square meter on-farm diversified use. There's nothing that specific. It just says that it has to be the main use, and that's farming. And in the case of prime ag areas, they have to have a bona fide farm identification number for that property.
Thank you.
Counselor Shipston, you had a question?
Yeah, this is more a comment for you, Andy, Mr. Bate. There have been a lot of these come up where the fire department is involved, and they should be getting plans of where all that kind of stuff is stored, depending on what dry use it is. And a lot of them are being asked to put in gigantic cisterns, like 60,000 liters on their own dime. So there is some. I believe it should be more if there's clusters, but that's just a personal opinion. But there is safety issues being looked at. So that might just be something, because you were questioning that aspect of it. So just
Yeah, okay. Well,
for your,
thank
for
you.
your info mainly.
Yeah, no, but I have seen some of these cisterns go in, and it seems to be, you know, for the newer ones, but again, you know, it's limited water. And, you know, we had the incident on County Road 14 at the one place, and I know Grey Highlands has had a bunch of incidents, and we have a volunteer fire department with limited resources. And I just didn't see any comments on either of these applications on whether, you know, the fire department had any concerns. And I think it should be part of the site plan agreement that there's fire protection there.
Lindsay, go ahead.
Just of note, so the fire department does receive all of the applications, Mr. Bite. They typically would only comment if there was a concern, but I can speak to the fire chief about commenting and just saying that there's no concerns so that people see that. But typically he would only submit a comment if there was concerns, and like Martin or Councillor Shipston alluded to, it's usually if he feels that a reservoir should be installed. But I can speak to him about submitting comments that he doesn't have concerns, just so it's with the file.
Yeah, because none of these say exactly what they're going to be doing or what is stored either. They don't say that I've got welding gases, I've got nitrogen, I've got oxygen, I've got whatever else, you know, propane, diesel, all those things, you know, and that, and what kind of manufacturing are they doing, you know, and I know with the building code on certain industrial facilities, you have to have sprinklered systems.
Okay, are there any other questions or further discussions from members of council at this time? Seeing none, that concludes that file. So we will move on to the next application, which is file C10-24 for Edwin and Ellen Beringer, also for Fairbanks Creek School. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is to apply an appropriate zoning to permit the existing Fairbanks Creek School on a proposed severed lot with 90 meters frontage on Southgate Road 8 and 0.84 hectares of lot area. The existing agricultural 1 exception 355 zone would be replaced with a special community facility zone to apply to a proposed severed lot to allow for future expansion. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would be to rezone the proposed newly created lot containing the existing Fairbanks Creek School to special community facility zone to permit future expansion. An application for consent to create the proposed lot is being considered by the Committee of Adjustment. I would note that it was approved by the Committee of Adjustment this morning. Location of the subject lands, concession 7 north, part lot 1, Gore A, RP 16R 6693, part 1 and 2, geographic township of Egremont, township of Southgate, civic address 411361, Southgate Side Road 41. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, through you, Chair Milne, proper notice was given in accordance with the act. The sign was posted on the property and notice was sent out.
Perfect, thanks, Lindsay. I will now ask for our planning consultant, Bill White, to review correspondence received from the commenting agencies.
Thank you, Chair Milne. The Bell Canada and Enbridge Gas had no comments or concerns. Public Works comments noted that safe access can be provided, that road widening is necessary, and that this is a load restricted road. The Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority did not have any significant concerns with the application. They looked at it from natural heritage perspective, and under provincial policy, they believe that it's consistent with section 3.1 and with natural hazard policies in the Grey County and Township of Southgate official plans. County of Grey assessed the application from a number of areas, including their lot density requirements, which are met, the MDS calculations, which we heard were met this morning, but they did also note the presence of a aggregate designation on a portion of the property nearby the existing school or within the proposed lot. And on that basis, because of the aggregate potential, they're recommending refusal of the application. I don't believe there are any other comments received regarding this proposal.
Perfect, thanks, Bill. I do see that the agent for this application is online. Mr. Scott, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think we discussed it fairly thoroughly this morning. I'm a little nervous representing the Mennonite community after the previous applications, but I think normally I wouldn't be recommending that a school be built in the rural area, but considering it's for the Mennonite community and they've got certain transportation limitations, I think it's an appropriate use and it's well located. I was a little concerned about the load restrictions comments. Does that mean you can't use Clydesdale horses on that road, Bill? Anyway, I don't really have much more to say than I did this morning. The only cautionary note I would say when it comes to agricultural policy, one should always be skeptical of agricultural policy that's developed south of Bloor Street, because it has its limitations. Anyway, I'm prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Are there any questions or discussion from council at this time? Mayor Milne?
Mr. Scott, do you not think we should have changed that or amend that to anything south of Highway 7? That would probably be more accurate. And by the way, it's good to see you, Mr. Scott. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mayor Milne, Gordon Milne. Thank you. Highway 7's not a bad idea. Thank you.
Councillor Singh-Soares, you have a question?
It's just a comment.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me?
It's very quiet.
Sorry, 1 second.
How's that?
That's much better, thank you.
Sorry about that, guys. I was just saying good afternoon again to everybody, and just through you, Chair, to the gentleman again. As was mentioned earlier in the Committee of Adjustment meeting, This has already been an established school. And has there been any, concerns with any of these restrictions? Because if it's already been running, there's no issue and is going to be assisting, people from our public that do have certain cultural and requirements and things that would better serve them. Has there been any complaints or issues in that regard?
Not to my knowledge, there hasn't been any concerns. It's been there for since 2014. I reviewed it with regard to policy, and it's pretty consistent with provincial policy. And as you're aware, a county policy is basically a reflection of provincial policy. Township policy is a reflection of county and provincial policy. So I don't see any major conflicts from a policy perspective. The concern that the county expressed with regard to the aggregate designation, it's true, it's on there, but the school's been there for a number of years, and by creating a property, you're not altering any more effect it has on the aggregate resource than already exists. So I feel that it's appropriate considering who is serving, and would respectfully request that bylaw be passed to sort of correct the errors of the past. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council? Councillor Shipston?
Thank you, Alicia. Yeah, as we talked about this morning, Dawn, with all the estate lots around there, it's probably not going to be an issue. This is just house cleaning. But I know when it comes to site plan, these are public comments, because it is going to be expanding, and that is a busy area. A lot of the Mennonite schools have flashing solar slowdown lights, and I'd like to see that put into the site plan whenever that comes forward as a comment. But other than that, yeah, we agreed on it in principle this morning. So they do need the schools. Their groups are growing, their families are growing. So, and it's been there for years. So
yeah,
just a comment.
Yeah, it's appropriate comment, and that's something that could be dealt with through the site plan agreement.
Very good, thank you. Were there any other questions from council at this time? Seeing none, is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of the application? Seeing and hearing none, is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition to the application? Seeing and hearing none, are there any further questions from council on this application? Seeing and hearing none, that completes that file. So we will move on. Next application is C1124, Douglas, Allen, Vicky, and Dennis Haw. The purpose of the proposed rezoning is to implement potential conditions of consent application B5-24, which would sever the existing surplus farmhouse and outbuildings from the subject lands. The proposed rezoning would recognize existing site and building conditions on the proposed 1.137 hectare lot with 95 meters frontage on Southgate Road 26, and rezone the remaining 46 hectare farm parcel to prohibit a new residential dwelling from being constructed. The effect of the proposed rezoning will be to establish site-specific zoning rules for the severed surplus farm building lot under file B5-24, and to rezone the remaining agricultural property to prohibit construction of a new residence on site. Location of the subject lands: concession 19, lot 4, geographic township of Proton, township of Southgate, civic address 265155 Southgate Road 26. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, through you, Chair Milne, proper notice was given in accordance with the act. The sign was posted on the property and notice was sent out to neighboring property owners.
Perfect, thank you. I will now ask for our planning consultant, Bill White, to review correspondence received from the commenting agencies.
Thank you, Chair Milne. Bell Canada and Enbridge Gas again had no comments or concerns. Public Works Department noted safe access can be provided, that road widening is necessary, and that this is a load restricted road. Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority reviewed the application relative to natural heritage, natural hazard policies, and they believe that it is consistent with section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement and with the county and township official plans. The County of Gray reviewed the proposal relative to surplus farm severance criteria in their official plan. And they advised that so long as those criteria are followed, that they had no concerns with the subject application. I believe there is nothing further in writing on the proposal.
Thank you, Bill. Is the applicant or agent present? Please identify yourself by stating your name for the record, and would you like to make any representation on your application?
I'm Doug Ha. I have no problems.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ha, for joining today. Are there any questions or discussions from council at this time? Seeing none, is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of the application? Seeing and hearing none, is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition to the application? Seeing and hearing none, are there any further questions or discussions from members of council? Seeing and hearing none, that concludes that application. And we will now move on to file C12-24 for Melmar Industries, Inc. The purpose of the proposed rezoning is to permit an on-farm diversified use on the proposed severed lot under file B6-24. The proposed workshop, office, and detached power room would have a combined area of 750 square meters with 500 square meters of outdoor storage. The effect of the proposed rezoning would be to permit an on-farm diversified use workshop along with a new farm dwelling and barn to be constructed on the lot to be severed under file B6-24. Location of the subject lands, concession 8, lot 28 to 29, geographic township of Proton, township of Southgate, civic address 126282, Southgate Road 12. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, through you, Chair Milne, proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act. The sign was posted on the property and notice was sent out to neighboring properties.
Thank you, Lindsay. I will now ask for our planning consultant, Bill White, to review correspondence received from the commenting agencies.
Thank you, Chair Milne. Enbridge Gas had no comments regarding the application. Township Public Works advised that safe access can be provided. Road widening is necessary, and this is a load restricted road. The Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority reviewed the application relative to natural heritage policy, the natural hazard policies in the PPS, and believe it's consistent with section 3.1 and with the county and township official plan policies for natural hazards. In the County of Gray, reviewed the proposal relative to their ecological criteria in their official plan. They've noted that vegetation within the significant valley lands be maintained to protect the Coldwater River habitat, but they have no concerns with the application provided the 30-meter setback from the significant valley lands can be met. And they have no concerns with the application provided those comments are addressed. I believe there is nothing else in writing on the proposal.
Thank you, Bill. I'll now ask if the applicant or agent is present. Please identify yourself by stating your name for the record. Would you like to make any representation on your application?
I'm the applicant, Eli Shirk. I'm here to answer any questions if any arise.
Okay, thank you, Eli, for joining. Are there any questions or discussions from members of council at this time? Counselor Shipston?
Yeah, hi, yeah, thank you, Alicia. Yeah, this was mentioned this morning. All the conservation questions were kind of answered. But there, on both properties, there are crossings across the South Saugeen River. Again, which I said this morning is a very crucial tributary. And there is that, there is a drain there too, I believe. Or maybe I'm getting things mixed up. I was just wondering what kind of engineered crossings would be going over those substantial conservation creeks. And we've already had one where they're going over waterways. I think that was more of a drain, but I'm only asking because this is a significant tributary. I wondered what kind of engineered crossings would they put in to get the farm equipment back to the parts they want to farm.
I'm not sure I'm the best one to answer this, but when I looked at the topographic maps, there doesn't seem to be anything particularly engineered at the locations where these crossings are shown. I stand to be corrected on that, but I believe it just appears to be a lower water area, and I think that they just drive the equipment across, but I stand to be corrected on that.
Our intention is to build a bridge. And we have permission from Saugeen Valley already. And we will apply for a permit through the Township Building Inspection Department. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that is very good. And considering the storms we're getting now with climate change, what have you, to have a good bridge would be beneficial for both you and everyone else, because that'll certainly take the water away from your fields without causing any major. So that's good to know. Thank you very much, Eli.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council members at this time? Seeing and hearing none, is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of the application? Seeing and hearing none, is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition to the application? Seeing and hearing none, are there any further questions or discussions from council members? Seeing and hearing none, I would just note that planning reports will be presented to council when the applicable bylaw is presented for consideration at a future council meeting. And I will now declare this public portion of the meeting adjourned at 1:58 p.m. Thank you, everyone.